Okay, I start already. First thing first, can y'all check if y'all have your hand out? There should be two things you shall get today. First is 3B notes. Next is the lecture test, the answers. So if you don't have, can y'all come to the front and take it? So your holiday homework, right, is to watch your term 2 test, the post-mortem. It will be made available on the H1 Econ site around. What's a mortem? Basically, is cut open your dead body and then we will analyze it. That's a post-mortem. That's the meaning. So basically, if we want you to analyze what went wrong in your test. So the answers, right, is a fill in a blank one. So you all have to watch the video and fill in the blank for your answer. The average for your cohort. No one's interested? The average for the cohort was about 10.8. So if your score below that, please watch the video and reflect on what went wrong. If your score more than that, please also watch the video to see how can you perform even better. Okay? Can I? Then move on to 3B already, Okay, so for 3B, right? We will move on to the applications of elasticity. So, an overview. So, previously, y'all learned about PD and PS. Y'all so noisy. Quieten down a bit. I can barely hear myself. So, PD and PS, okay? So, what did we learn in 3A? Definition, formula, sign, magnitude, and the determinants. If anything doesn't feel very familiar to you, please go and revise your 3A, okay? So in 3B, it will be hopefully split into two lectures. The first part I'll cover today. What we're going to cover is the application of elasticity in a market. So basically, how PED and PS will affect the magnitude of price and quantity given that there was a change in demand or supply. Then, in the next lecture, which is in term 3, what we're going to cover is that how do PD and PS, these concepts, influence the decision making for economic agents, which is the producers and the government. Okay, so that's the split of the lecture. So today, this is the overview for today. First, there will be some kind of event from the real world. And then you have to link it to your determinants of demand and supply. So basically your tiger sip and your tiger soul. And then there will be a shift in your demand and supply. And then right, your PAP process again, so that at the original price, there might be a shortage or a surplus. Then the buyers or producers will react. And then you will see a change in price. And when there's a change in price, there might be a change in quantity demanded or quantity supplied. And whether it's a change in quantity demanded or supply, it will depend on whether demand or supply shifted first. So what do I mean by that, okay? So this is just an overview, it's not in your notes. You can just listen. So we have learned so far that when demand increases, right, there will be an increase in price and an increase in quantity. However, right, when there's an increase in demand, you see a shift of the demand curve from D0 to D1. But at the same time, do you see that there's actually a movement along the supply curve? The red arrow, can you see there's a movement along the supply curve? So which elasticity? Did anyone hear anything? I don't hear anything. Okay, so which elasticity concept do we pair with this? Is your PES. Because of the definition of PES, PS is the degree of responsiveness of quantity supplied to a change in price. Can you see when there's a shift of the demand curve from D0 to D1, it's actually a movement along the supply curve. So given a change in price, your quantity supplied has changed. And that is the definition of PDS. If we move on to supply, when there is an increase in supply, right? You see the supply curve shifts from S0 to S1. If you look at the red arrow, it's actually a movement along the demand curve. So which elasticity concept do you pair with it? It will be PED, which is the degree of responsiveness of QD given a change in P. I repeat one more time. Supply curve shifts from S0 to S1. You see your price fall. And when your price falls, your Q changes. So it's a movement along the demand curve. Yeah. So if anything you take out from this slide, the most important thing is if you see there's a change in supply, you use PED. If there's a change in demand, you use PS. If there's anything, you jot down that sentence, okay? Change in supply, use PED. Change in demand, use PES. Okay. And we move on. Then next, after there's a change in price and a change in QD or QS, we can analyze that whether there is a change in revenue or expenditure. So what is the formula of revenue and expenditure? It's price times quantity. And then you will find out that when we analyze changes in revenue, only PED is critical. PS actually doesn't really matter. So what do I mean by that? We'll hold that thought and our progress first, and you'll find out the answer at the end, okay? So more recap. Still not on your slides yet. I mean in your notes yet. So in 2B, right, the market economy, we had increased demand, decreased demand, increased supply, decreased supply, right? All these are all directional changes. So how does elasticities play a role? Elasticities will affect the magnitude of the change in price and the change in quantity. Okay, now flip to page 2 of your notes. So let's explore that when we have a decrease in supply, what would happen? So there is a fall in supply from S0 to S1, okay? The diagram is already printed for you, so I don't think there's anything to copy for the diagram. So there's a fall in supply from S0 to S1. So can we see that there is a shortage? My quantity demanded is over here at Q0. Quantity supplied, right? It's somewhere around here, okay, where S1 intersects P0. So there's a shortage. Then who will react first? Who will react first? Consumers, right? Consumers will react first and they'll bid up the prices. And then you'll get your new equilibrium, which we label it as B. And the corresponding price is PE and QE. So there'll be an increase in price, right, from P0 to PE. At the same time, there's a decrease in quantity from Q0 to QE. This one can understand, right? So if PED is more than 1, what does that mean? It means that when there's an increase in price, it leads to a more than proportionate decrease in quantity demanded. So can you see the increase in price, the red arrow, is actually shorter than the green arrow because the increase in price leads to a more than proportionate decrease in QD. So what's the formula for total revenue? I just now mentioned. Yes, price minus quantity. So can we see that the increase in total revenue due to P, which is this red box, is actually less than the decrease in total revenue due to QD. If I ask y'all, what is the initial total revenue? Can y'all tell me what's the initial total revenue? You know, like last time in math, your triangles, then you need to label it A, B, C, triangle A, B, C. Can we do the same for here? Initial total revenue, what is the rectangle? My econs rep. Oh, actually, I have many. Sorry, yeah. Okay, 长姐. How is my initial total revenue? What is the rectangle? Initial total revenue. P0 times Q0. So you're referring to a rectangle 0, P0, okay, here, 0, P0, A, and Q. Correct, right? Then what's the final total revenue? PE times QE, yeah? So you're referring to rectangle 0, PE, B, and then QE. And that's correct, okay? So overall, right, there is a fall in total revenue from the initial total revenue, which is depicted by the purple box, to the final total revenue, which is depicted by this yellowish green box. So can you see originally we were at the purple box here, that's our initial total revenue. And then because of the decrease in quantity, which is the green box, we lost this green box. So now then we have this square. But then at the same time, because there was a rise in price, so we gain the total revenue in the form of this red box. So that's how you derive your final total revenue. Can? And now then I move on. Now we're going to add one more curve. Just now we covered the case where PED is more than 1. Now we are going to include the case that PED is less than 1 in this diagram. So how do I draw the demand curve, PED less than 1? First thing first, it has to be steeper than the DE line because it's a demand is price inelastic. And then it has to intersect at the original equilibrium, which is depicted at A. So you draw this demand that it's price inelastic, this brown line over here, okay? And then my new equilibrium point, it's point C. And then the corresponding price is PI. The corresponding quantity is QI. So if we look at the case where PED is less than 1, you see that your price increases from P0 to PI. And your quantity decreases from Q0 to QI. So PED less than 1. What does it mean? Increase in price leads to a less than proportionate decrease in quantity demanded. Okay, you see, the red arrow is longer than the green arrow. So the increase in price leads to a less than proportionate decrease in QD. Okay, then with so many lines now, can you still find the total revenue, the initial total revenue? Now, for my other econs rep. Okay, PI times QI is the final one. Okay, what's the initial one? Okay, P0, Q0. So the initial total revenue is 0, P0, A, and Q0. That's the initial total revenue. Your final total revenue is 0, P1, C, and QI. That's your final total revenue. So you are able to see that the increase in total revenue due to the increase in price is bigger than the decrease in total revenue due to the fall in quantity demanded. Okay. And therefore, there is an increase in total revenue from this purple box here, which is 0 P0 AQ0, to the yellowish green box, which is 0 PI C and QI. So that is why, right, you see for like maybe cigarette producers, right? So when a specific tax, right, is imposed, and then there is a decrease in supply, right? When there's tax, it will cause the cost of production to increase, you decrease your profitability, and then the supply will shift, and there will be decrease in supply. And then but then at the same time, even though there's a tax, their total revenue can increase. Why? It's because the PED for cigarettes is less than 1. Basically, people are addicted to it. So even though the price increases, they still have to keep buying it. And we move on. Yes, okay. Yeah, then now we flip to page 3. So at page 3, right, we give you all a question. Basically, you explain how droughts or heat waves will impact the avocado producers' revenue. So then we have the extract here. I give you all like 30 seconds to hurry up, skim through the extract, and then we'll go through it. Can we finish already? Can. So the first thing I took note of was the superfood is becoming a staple. So PED more than 1 or less than 1, easier. Superfood is becoming a staple. So does that mean that the PED for avocados is more than 1 or less than 1? Less than 1. So what is the PED determinant that I can use? PED determinants got availability of substitutes, got degree of necessity. Yes. There's a high degree of necessity, and therefore your PED is less than 1. And then the next thing, avocado prices have skyrocketed. So when I see the word like rocketed, or like I see words like has increased sharply, or like has risen large, there's a huge increase in like price. So what is this trying to hint to you, right? Or this is trying to hint to you about the magnitudes of the change in price and quantity. Basically, they're trying to tell you that you need to use elasticity in this type of questions. So if the question is asking, can you explain the changes? Why is there a sharp increase in price? Why is there like record-breaking prices? All of this is trying to hint to you that you not only need to tell me that prices increase, you also need to explain to me why prices have increased so much. So, and that's where you bring in your elasticity concepts. Okay? Then if we move on to the second paragraph, right? We have like droughts or heat waves. So when you all read it, you tell me there's poor weather and then it leads to a fall in supply. That's Sherwin's favorite. But right, I tell you right, you can write more in this arrow. Okay, this arrow contains like a lot of words. Example. So there's poor weather, right? Because there's drought and heat wave. So water becomes more expensive. So it's very hard to grow avocados with the lack of water. Since water is a factor input to grow avocados, right? There will be an increase in cost of production. And then when there's an increase in cost of production, what happens? Hayden, what happens when there's an increase in cost of production? Increase in cost of production. If for the producers, if there's increase in cost of production, how does it affect them? Yes, there will be a reduce in profitability. So the profit maximizing farmers or producers, they will choose not to grow avocado that cause a fall in the supply of avocado. So right, Sherwin, the arrow there, right, is a lot of words. Okay? So no others determinant. Yeah. Then now we move on to the diagram. Are y'all able to draw the diagram now? I give y'all 60 seconds to draw the diagram. Speed draw, speed draw. How? Your draw finish already? Need more time. By the way, you need both the elastic price elastic demand curve and the price inelastic demand curve. Because we are on elasticity, so you need to always show the comparison. So if there's a sharp increase in prices, you just draw one demand curve, right? You cannot show that when it increased from P0, the original price, to P1, you cannot show that there's a sharp increase in price. It's only when you have two demand curves together that intersect at the same point, which is the original equilibrium, can you show that there is a sharp increase in price? That's why the DE is over here. Okay, I start going through already. Okay, so there is a fall in supply, right, due to the adverse weather conditions. So S0 shifts to leftwards from S0 to S1. Okay, and then now if you are wondering why there's a D curve, I'll explain it later. So anyways, the new equilibrium is where S1 cuts the DE, and then that's your equilibrium price, PE, and your new equilibrium quantity, QE. Okay, and then next, you need to draw in the price inelastic demand curve because we need it as a point of comparison. So basically, DE is the point of comparison as compared to DI. Because you see, right, if I only draw DE, my price increase from P0 to PE. It's just a normal increase. It's only when I have a more inelastic demand curve, then you see that this new intersection is at PI and QI, then you see that there's a sharp increase in price. So let me just annotate this, use the laser pointer. So you see at P0, right, where DI cuts T0, the original price, right, that's your quantity demanded. Where S1 cuts your P0, that's where your quantity supply is at the original price. So therefore we have a shortage, okay? Then there's a shortage, right? Which is wherever my laser is going over. And then because buyers cannot get all the goods that they need, they are willing to beat up the prices. And your price increases. So for example, price increases to PE. Can you see if I have a price inelastic demand curve, right? When the price increases to PE, there's still a shortage here. The shortage hasn't been eliminated. Therefore, to eliminate the shortage, right, your prices have to increase all the way to PI. Then the shortage can be eliminated. And that's why we need two demand curves to show that there is a sharp increase in the price. Okay, so now we've shown that there's a sharp increase in the price, but actually we haven't answered the question yet. The question is asking is how will it impact the revenue of avocado producers? So now, we will first add the equilibrium points first. So where S0 cuts D0, that's A. You can label it down as A. Where DE cuts intersects with S1, that's your B. And where DI intersects with S0, S1 is over here. That's your point C. Why do I need to label all this? It's because so that when I write in my answer, my diagrammatic analysis, you can tell the examiner which triangle, which rectangle you're referring to. If not, how are you going to express it? You will be like shading the initial total revenue or use highlighter to shade the initial total revenue, which is very messy. Okay, so that's why we need to label every single point, is so that when you write in your diagrammatic analysis, you can tell the examiner which rectangle am I referring to. So, and I'm coloring it just so that y'all can see clearly, okay? So your initial total revenue is 0, P0, A, Q0. Your final total revenue is 0, P1, C, and, no, that's not P1, that's PI, C and QI. Okay, so overall, the revenue has increased from the initial total revenue shown in yellow to the final total revenue shown in blue. Okay? So when answering this type of questions, right, there's actually a format one. So you all just need to follow the format, then you cannot go too wrong. So first, you tell me what is the event. So normally they will have told you the event. So the event in this case is droughts or heat waves. And then you need to link it to a determinant. Is it tiger sip or tiger soul? Depends on whether it affects demand or supply, right? So in this case, it's tiger soul because it affected supply. And then what's the impact on supply? So in this case, there's a fall. And then you explain why PED is relevant in this case. And then you explain the PED value using the determinant. So if you tell me PED is less than 1, you need to tell me which PED determinant are you going to use, and then you explain to me this PED determinant, what it is. Then you state that the increase in price or the change in price leads to a more than proportional or less than proportionate change in quantity demanded. And lastly, if the question asks you about revenue, then you need to conclude with what happened to revenue. Did it increase or did it decrease? So there is a structure to it. Not anyhow, right? Okay. Then I move on. Then if you look at the bottom of your page 3 or turn to your page 4, right, there is a additional question that was included in for you, which is account for the significant changes in the price of cigarettes when GST increases. It's right at the bottom of page 3. Okay. Then in page 4, they ask you to note the differences between like this question that they just give you and the previous one, which is the drought question that we just went through. So what are the differences and what is the between the previous one and this question? So the drought question, right, they ask you about what is the impact on revenue. While the cigarette question, they ask you what is the significant change in price. So one's asking about revenue, one's asking about price. Then what's the role? Both questions will require PED. So about what is the role of PED? In the first scenario, the drought question, they are saying that PED will affect on whether total revenue increase or decrease. However, in the second scenario, they're asking you to prove the magnitude of increase in P. And the diagram that you use, this is the main thing, right? The diagram that you use, right, is actually the same. No matter whether they ask, so you don't need to copy out a diagram because you already drew the diagram. So it's just no matter whether they ask about impact on total revenue or whether they ask whether there's a significant change in prices, the diagram you draw is actually the same. Okay, maybe not exactly the same because for GST, right? GST is what kind of tax? Ad valorem tax. So when there's an ad valorem tax, your supply is a pivotal shift, like this diagram. It's not a parallel shift, but that's the only difference in the diagram, okay? And so these two type of questions look different, but actually how you write the answer and the diagram is actually is almost the same one. Then we move on to the case where supply increases, okay? So they say in this case, they ask you to explain how the decrease in price of sugar may affect the Coca-Cola's total revenue. So what is the relationship between sugar and Coca-Cola? Basically, sugar is a factor input used in the production of Coca-Cola. So I was curious, I went to go and search online. Apparently, right, all of us, right, maximum, right, we're supposed to eat 50 grams of sugar a day. One can of Coke is like 39 grams of sugar. So the main takeaway for this slide is don't drink Coke. Bubble tea, I searched. Bubble tea is like 45 grams of sugar. Yeah, but you need to eat other things, right? You need to eat your fruits. Your fruits also got sugar, So please don't drink Coke. Yeah, okay, that's the main takeaway for this slide. Next slide's got other takeaways. Yeah, I think this diagram is not drawn for you, so we need to draw it together. So you follow me closely, I go slower. So first, decrease in price of sugar, right? It means there will be a decrease in cost of production of Coke. So with the same amount of resources, more Coke can be produced. So there will be an increase in the supply of Coke. So when there's an increase in supply of Coke, right, you see the supply curve shifts to the right from S0 to S1. Okay? Have you all drawn the shift in supply already? You need to draw because this time it's not printed for you. Either you go home and see that it's empty, then you don't know what's going on. Okay? Given at a new intersection point where S1 intersects DE, we will label the new equilibrium point as B. And then your new price, the new equilibrium price is PE, the new equilibrium quantity is QE. Okay? Have you all jotted it down? Okay, I draw finish already. So when we want to analyze the impact of total revenue, we need to see if Coke's PED is more than 1 or less than 1. So do y'all think Coke's PED is more than 1 or less than 1?
More than one.
More than 1? Why? Many close substitutes, right? Like there is like bubble tea, someone mentioned earlier. Plain water is also a good substitute. You can drink more water. What else? Yeah. Red Bull, oh yeah, okay, it is a substitute too. So what happens to price? Price falls this time, it falls from P0 to PE. And quantity increases from Q0 to QE. So if it's PED more than 1, because we established that Coke's demand is price elastic, the increase in price, is it a more than proportional or less than proportionate? The decrease in price, will it lead to a more than proportionate or less than proportionate fall in QD? Who? Jennifer? More? Yes, it's a more than proportionate. A decrease in price leads to a more than proportionate increase in QD. And then we look at total revenue, okay? The decrease in total revenue due to the decrease in price is less than the increase in total revenue due to the increase in quantity demanded. Yes, it's the same thing, it's just the other way around. Can then does total revenue increase or fall? Increase. So the summary for this slide, for companies like Coca-Cola, right? If their price of their factor input falls, their total revenue will increase if the demand is price elastic. But can Coca-Cola PED be less than 1? Possible, right? There are some people that are addicted to Coca-Cola. So no matter how much I say here, they go home and still drink Coca-Cola. So then I will need to draw in my curve, the demand curve that is price inelastic. So how do I draw it? How do I draw it? Anyone can help me? Does it intersect at point A or point B? A? Everyone says A? It intersects at point A, like this. The original equilibrium. You need to find your original equilibrium, then you draw your new demand curve. Or not really the new demand curve, the demand curve that is price inelastic. Okay, then where DI cuts S1 will be your equilibrium point C. And then if we extend it, your new equilibrium price is PI, and your new equilibrium quantity is QI. And we always have to draw these two curves. It's because we need it as a point of comparison. So price, I think all of y'all can see, price would fall from P0 to PI. Quantity will increase from Q0 to QI. If PD is less than 1, what does it mean? The decrease in price will lead to a less than proportionate increase in quantity demanded. Am I going too fast? Yes. Okay. Then the decrease in total revenue due to the decrease in price, which is the red box, is more than the increase in total revenue due to the increase in quantity demanded. So total revenue increases or decreases? See here, does total revenue increase or decrease? Decrease. Decrease, Can Are you okay? Yeah. Then in summary, so what we did so far is we've been using PED to analyze what happens to total revenue when there is a fall in supply and when there's a rise in supply. So we only did PED so far, there's still PES. So for PS, when do we use it? It's when there's a change in demand. We need to find out what happens to price. How will price change? Okay? But I just need to remind y'all again, if there's a change in supply, you pair it with PED. If there's a change in demand, you pair it with PS. Okay? So now there will be a change in demand. The next few slides, there will be a change in demand. And then we are going to use PS to see how does it affect the magnitude of the change in price and change in quantity. Yeah. Now the demand increases, Look, it's increasing now. I think this diagram is printed for y'all, alright? So y'all just listen. So the demand increase means demand shifts to the right from D0 to D1. Okay? Then the new equilibrium I'll label it as B. And then this is the corresponding, the new equilibrium price, PE, and the new equilibrium quantity, QE. And then at the original equilibrium point, the original equilibrium point is over here, I include in my supply curve that is priced inelastic. This brown curve here is SI at the original equilibrium point. And then the equilibrium, the new equilibrium where SI cuts D1 here is labeled as point C, and the corresponding, the new equilibrium price and quantity will be PI and QI. Okay? And then if we see for when we look at the brown line first, okay? We look at the brown line first. When PS is less than 1, you will see that the price increases from P0 to P1, while the quantity increases from Q0 to QI. If we look at PS more than 1, the blue line, if we now look at the blue line, we see that price increase from P0 to PE, while quantity increases from Q0 to QE. So in both cases, what happens to total revenue? Who else do I have? Felix, what happens to total revenue for both cases? We look at this, what happens to total revenue? Or how about you tell me when PS is less than 1, what is the initial total revenue? You only keep quiet, I cannot hear him. Okay, when PES is less than 1. So we are looking at the supply curve, the SI first, the brown line. Okay? Can you tell me what is the initial total revenue? P0, Q0? Yes. Hello, you're so noisy. P0, Q0. So for the brown line, the initial total revenue is here. Oh, I cannot see. Let's see. I'll use red. Yeah, this is your initial total revenue. Then can you tell me what's the final total revenue? Final total revenue? PI? Yeah, PI. What else? PIQI, The final total revenue. Oh, my pen is low. It's over here. 0 PICQI. Over here. Okay, come, let me change to blue. If we look at PS more than 1, what's the initial total revenue? What is the initial total revenue if PS is more than 1? PO? QO? Okay. That's a diagonal line. POQO is a diagonal line. PO multiplied by QO is not, is a square. PO to QO is a diagonal line. The multiply one, so it's P0, A, Q0, and 0, this box here. What is the final total revenue? Final total revenue. When PS is more than 1, the blue line. PEQE, yeah? So it's PE to B to QE to 0. So, back to my initial question, what happens to total revenue? Who can help me? What happens to total revenue? Do you have any help? Total revenue increase, for both cases, one case? Okay. PS more than 1 for both, total revenue increases for both. Yeah, total revenue increases for both. Okay. So I will pause here. Y'all go home and think, does PES matter in these two scenarios? The first scenario is when you analyze the extent of change in price and change in quantity given a change in demand. And when you analyze total revenue. So you go home and think about that. I'll pause here.